Welcome, professional wrestling fans, to the PW Fan, the ultimate pro wrestling podcast created by the fans for the fans, 100% DIY, and this is episode 100. I can't believe we made it. Well, I actually can believe it a little bit because no one's going to outwork us, brother. We'll see you again for episode 200 and then 300. We ain't going anywhere. I am your host, the collector, barber, and musician, and most importantly, a professional wrestling podcaster, shout out Colt Cabana, Talk Wrestling, Tim Gilbert.
And I'm your host, the architect of pro wrestling podcast, Funko Pop collector, and Steelers fan, Andy.
I'm also your host, the no-selling wrestling indie fan and football lover, Jeremy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we will be discussing and reviewing some of the unfortunate WWE releases and a little bit about the merger with Endeavor. Jon Moxley getting concussed and a little bit about the spots that it might have happened during. CM Punk rumors and more. But hey, this is episode 100, so before we start our classic reviews of the week, we're going to be talking and interviewing the Lancaster legend and 3LW champion, Breaux Keller. But before we start this week's episode, we need to do some plugging of the social media. Go to youtube.com/the PW Fan so you can comment, like, and subscribe. When you do this, you're helping us. You're helping us grow, you're helping our YouTube presence grow, and you're helping us get on that wrestling recommended for you page. We got 5 different unique shirt designs on prowrestlingtees.com/the PW Fan. And for all other social media, you can just look up at the PW Fan and we should pop right up, and stick around to the end where I'll be doing my classic show of the week. All right, so stick around. We're going to start our interview with Breaux here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mr. Breaux Keller, how are we, sir?
Not too shabby at all. Coming to you live from a casino in an airport in Las Vegas, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, it looks fun. It looks fun.
That's the way to do it.
I've never been to an airport that has a casino in it, but I'm really curious on the level of just dedication to the hustle and the game of gambling. If you're in here pulling the slots while you're at the airport, bravo to everybody that's doing it, though. Hopefully they're winning big bucks.
They don't stop.
They don't stop. They do not.
Hey, you get me a couple shots of Tito's, I might be pulling the slots, So
Hey, there we go. No arguments here. Honestly, I was just down here at the restaurant. They had like a little Mexican cantina. Had a couple drinks myself. So I might start pulling this thing a little bit.
Only in Vegas. Only at the Vegas airport.
That is incredible. Well, bro, it's great to see you again, and thank you so much for coming back. We got questions for you this time. Last time you kind of reviewed some shows with us, you hung out with us, you did the traditional podcast format with us, but today, this is more about you. We got questions for you, but we are going to sprinkle some hard hitters in there for you. Now, rising in the ranks of pro wrestling, if you would prefer to no comment on some of these questions, I get it. We would never want to cause any issue for future potential employment for you. We just think you might have we just think that you might have an interesting perspective on a couple of these things. And who knows, you might
let them rip.
You might know a couple of these guys, so you might be like, I don't want to say anything. So I get that too. So, bro, are you ready, sir?
I could never say that I've been more ready for anything else in my life than I am for these questions that you're about to throw my way.
That's what we like.
All right, here we go.
So I know we went over a little bit of this last time, but for new listeners and people who may not know, can you tell us, who you are? Tell us about Breaux Keller, the character. Who do you wrestle for? And, kind of get us a little, you don't have to go into great detail, but just an introduction for people who maybe didn't hear episode 41.
No, great detail coming in. Everybody better strap in and buckle up because
all right.
I'm about to go deep diving on Breaux Keller. No, you already alluded to it. From Lancaster, Pennsylvania, billed from Cockeysville because why not? It's an awesome name for a town. Can't believe it actually exists. But
Andy and I live there.
will say
I went to middle school in Cockeysville for a little
See,
bit.
exactly. So you guys get it. You're right there with it. But no, Lancaster native, and I'm bringing all energy to the ring. Every time I'm going out there, that's the whole shtick. All energy. I'm the bro show. I want people to feel what it is that I'm feeling. When that music hits, I don't think people realize that like nothing else really compares to it. Steve Austin says it all the time. He's like, if you can bottle that up and sell it, you'd be a gajillionaire. I was like, you know what? He's spot on because nothing can replicate that. And that's exactly what I want to portray when I'm coming out. Like, I want to feel authentic. I want the people to be excited with me because I'm doing this for a reason. I'm excited. I'm passionate about it. And I think that's more or less who my character of Breaux Keller is, character, if you will. I just want it to feel authentic and be me. But yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for about 6 years now. I've loved every moment of it. I've taken a fun little journey up and down the roads. I've been up and down the East Coast, down south, into the Midwest wrestling, Northeast as well. I mean, I'm just trying to keep this ball rolling as best I can.
I mean, it's so cool that you are so passionate about it, and you know you're traveling all around. You've gone up and down the roads. You're paying your dues, brother, as they say. How do you balance the physical demands of wrestling with training and your health, but also being a husband and working a traditional job outside of the ring when you have to? How do you keep all those things balanced? Like, is it tough to be present for all of them? I know sometimes myself, I bite off more than I can chew with stuff, and it's a hard thing to be all these places at once.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm pretty guilty of biting off more than I can chew at times. I think to some extent, I just want to make sure that I'm fulfilling all my responsibilities, A, but then B, I know at least for people close to me in my life, I know what I expect from them. I want them to be not readily available, but like making an effort to be there, to be present. And I want to do that in return for them. But then also, like you said, real day job, which is literally why I'm in Vegas right now. I'm here for a conference and I'm flying to Colorado right after this for another conference. Um, there's just a lot of different factors at play. And then being a husband, my wife, she supports it. However, it's a big sacrifice for her too. And I I'm so lucky and I love that she has been so willing to kind of just allow me to do this and pursue this dream because I know it's not easy for her being at home, taking care of, some of the slack that I'm kind of leaving on her at certain times. Um, but you know what? I think long term, we have like a plan in place. I don't think many people maybe know. I mean, it's out there. We're expecting a child here in January.
Hey,
So basically New
congratulations!
Oh,
Year's.
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But that's just going to be another quote unquote wrinkle into the fold here. And
Yeah.
that's just going to be another thing where I have to kind of divide my attention, separate my time, and make sure that I'm really compartmentalizing my schedule, I guess, to a degree. So it's definitely tricky. And there are moments of stress.
Right.
However, I just think at the end of the day, this is something that I'm truly passionate about. I mean, there's some people that love bowling. There's some people that love to knit. You name it. Everybody has their passions and something that they care for. And this just happens to be mine. And I'm very lucky and grateful for the support system that I have in my life that kind of just affords me to kind of take some of these opportunities.
Now,
Uh,
correct me if I'm wrong. From the first time we had you on to now, you said you were married, but I don't think you were married during the first interview. I think it was recent, right?
Yeah, so I guess in a couple months here, coming up on a year that I've been rocking this bling bling, December
Okay.
yes,
2nd.
sir.
So, yeah, I think we were just before that last time around, but the wedding was awesome. I will say that. Obviously, I'm biased, but it was a kick ass time. And everybody seemed to have loved it. So, um, had so much fun with that. Honeymoon was great. And I mean, without getting too explicit, we got right to it, and we got a baby on the way.
I mean,
I was going to say that's where the baby came from.
yeah, there you go. I mean, so you're a newish husband at this point. You're an expecting father. Um, sometimes you were talking about hobbies. Some people like this thing, some people like that thing. Sometimes hobbies are dangerous. Andy. I don't want to speak for him, but he was a big skateboarder growing up, and later in life, from being so physical with his body, he even now suffers with some physical stuff from throwing himself downstairs and all kinds of stuff. So, do you feel now that you do have a little bit more on the line, and I know that's one of those things where like they always say like once a wrestler starts thinking about getting hurt, like that's like you shouldn't be thinking, and it's very much like skateboarding. I know Andy could attest, once a skater starts thinking about getting hurt all the time, it's almost like it's a mental thing. So, do you think that there is uh going to be new possible precautions on things that you're willing to do in the ring? And I guess what I'm getting at is, recently we saw John Moxley get knocked out from a dive from Ray Phoenix, and you can't say that was anybody's fault. Accidents happen. And then also those two pretty dangerous pile drivers at the end. I was just curious, like, your thoughts on spots like that, and if when you start to have these life changes, is it something that ever comes into play when you're discussing a match?
So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's something that I'm too overly concerned about. I mean, you can see here, I'm currently rocking the sling
Oh
because I
yeah.
separated my shoulder. Yeah. So it's very similar in that accidents happen, like you said, and nothing's intentional. And honestly, it was a six-man tag match. So I had, not the most amount of time in the ring, in terms of like being the legal man in action. And it was I was going for Hurricane Rana, and for whatever reason, we just got disconnected. My opponent didn't have like a full grasp of my legs, but I think this stuff happens so fast, and no matter how many reps you take and how often you've done it, there's always going to be some level of slip up or disconnection, like I said. And I put my arm down, and sure enough, when I did, the weight of my body came and dislocated my shoulder. So separated AC joint. It's about a 5 to 6 week recovery just because of the grade that it is. And the week before that, I got my bell rung. I don't know if it was necessarily concussion. I think it's just like an old football term for me, just like getting your bell rung, which
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a lot of time is a concussion, but we
Yeah.
just like to kind of sugarcoat it and say, no, it's fine. I just got my bell rung. But yeah, it is really serious. And kind of digressing a little bit, that's a concern with this kid on the way that like my wife has. She's saying, hey, I kind of want you to be able to walk around and like play with the kid and not have your brain melted inside of your skull. So very very understandable hesitations from her, and I respect that completely. And there are moments where I'll tell my opponent like, hey, I really like banged up my shoulder, so we can kind of avoid that. It'd be great. um, Obviously, I think in the moment, our you could say like our ego comes into play, and it's like, what, now I'll be fine, don't worry about it, and then you go out there and you do it
Right.
anyway.
Right.
And I think that's just a part of being the performer, being in front of a live audience, and really just saying, what, the window of this is already relatively short in the grand scheme of things. So if I have the opportunity to do something in front of a live crowd, I'm going to do it. And even if that means, like getting footage, I think that's huge nowadays with what social media is, which I'm horrible at. I need to step my game up on that front. But I think getting footage is massive. So there's a lot of times where I think people, they disregard the safety concerns, and they just say, what, let's just go for it.
It's amazing to me the parallels, again, coming back to skateboarding. And this is my first time really like realizing this, just the pride of doing it anyway, the part about gathering footage over time, trying to get your best footage. You like, I mean, there's a lot of like similar, the mental and the attitude seems like it's a lot of that. I mean, it's very dangerous, so you kind of got to go in it with a certain mindset. So, kind of brings me to my first. I'm going to throw in my first curveball, kind of tough question here. So, referee Rick Knox at the end of that match, Moxley was hurt. He was not supposed to lose. He was supposed to go over. Because he was hurt, you could tell. I mean, it's on the footage. Even Stevie Richards did a whole breakdown of the whole incident. He doesn't kick out, but the ref stops counting because he knows that it's not the finish. Now, I've read things over the years that even though the referee is with you and they're in on it and they're helping assist in some ways, that one of the things that you're always supposed to do is still count it like it's a shoot no matter what. Because so, I'm just curious, and I don't want to put any blame on the guy, but like if that was you in that scenario, if you had known like I'm hurt, please just end this match, and then he didn't, and then you had to do another move, would you have been angry, annoyed? Would that have been a conversation to have afterwards in the back?
Yeah, it's definitely conversation in the back. And what's so tricky about that is obviously, as you guys already know, like situations are situational, and in every occurrence, something is going to be different. There's going to be some particularity that comes into play. And I don't know what like interviews and conversations and reports have come out since that match, but who knows what level of communication was even taking place in the ring. I mean, yeah, you do want your referee to, count it as a shoot every time. However, that's happened before, and then those become the finish, and then that gets messed up, and then the wrestlers are even more pissed about that because it didn't go the way that they wanted. They were like, "Oh, I was waiting for your hand to come down before the, a kick out at 2 9/10." And it's like, oh, all right, sorry, I didn't know. Like, you should have kicked out sooner. Every time.
Do you, kind of back on like the traditional path of questions here? Like, we talked last time. You've done TV stuff for WWE and AEW. At this point, is breaking into a quote unquote bigger company like that something that you are like obsessing over, or are you enjoying the journey and it's one of those things that's like, I'm gonna bust my ass to get there, if it happens it happens, but you still love wrestling? Like, my thing is like, Nigel McGuinness put out this documentary about 10 years ago where it was very depressing. He felt like, I never made it to WWE, so my whole career is a waste, and like, I did all this and it was for nothing. But I'm like, you did still accomplish a lot, even though you didn't go to WWE, or even though he went later as an announcer for, stuff. But I'm just curious, like, for you, the memories that you have made and the stuff that you're doing now is that something that, is fulfilling, or is WWE like the only goal that you have?
So it's definitely not the only goal. I will say, though, I'm super freaking proud of what I've been able to do on the independent scene. I mean, being in the ring with guys that were in WWE or in AEW or Impact, you name it, I've had the good fortune of being able to wrestle guys from all of those companies. Literally former tag team champions in WWE, having WrestleMania matches, being a part of WrestleMania main events. Like, it's so tricky because yes, WWE is the end goal, and I think for me that's exactly where I want to be. That's where I see myself going. But it's so subjective, and I think that's what makes it slightly frustrating, because I do believe in my body of work, and I do think that I've put on some pretty darn good matches, and I've gone against some really darn good opponents, but it just has to be in front of the right person at the right time, in the right place. And like, even on that point, like, I wasn't even in the PWI 500 this year, and I was on it like 2 or 3 years in a row, and then last year I wasn't even on that list. I'm like, how? I don't get it. Like, I see guys that aren't even wrestlers that are on the list. Technically, they're in like the 490s, of course, but still, it's like, why is that person on it and I'm not? And that's no disrespect to them. I'm like, hey, everybody's entitled to have an opportunity in some capacity on there. And I respect the fact that certain people are on there, but also I don't know. I just feel like for myself, my competitive nature, that's certainly like a list I should have been on, and just in front of I don't know the fans and the audiences and the shows that I've done against the wrestlers that I've worked with. It's just it does kind of sit in the back of your mind at certain times where it's like, is there truly a chance coming up? And people say it. I don't know if they're just being nice or if they truly believe it. Either way, it's cool to hear. But they're like, dude, you're so close. Like, you're right there. But I think the biggest takeaway when I hear that, though, is when I talk to other people and they ask about dreams, aspirations, where I'm going, so close could be 6 months away, could be 6 years away. And there's no telling. There's zero clue. There's no inkling. So it's like I could be turning my wheels on the indies for the next 6 years, the next 10 years, or it could be 6 weeks, 6 months. Who knows? It's all basically in the dark. And I keep my fingers crossed that I hopefully get an opportunity. But again, it's just not something that I'm trying to dwell too much on. But I know where my goals are and I know where I want to be.
You're currently the 3LW wrestling champion, and I want to make sure I get this right. Does he still go by Ricardo? Is that his name, or is that his gimmick name?
Ricardo Rodriguez, gimmick name for sure. He's been going by Jesus Rodriguez, which is his actual name.
Okay.
I believe he goes by that on MLW, where he's been working a lot, especially when they do like the arena shows in Philly. But that, oh my goodness, that's actually how I really separated my shoulder, carrying that sweet title around my shoulder. Ooh, that thing is a beaut. My goodness.
With him, you being the champion of the school and the promotion that he's running, and you're not in school, but he does have a school. Is there is it's probably one of those things, right? Like, you don't want to ask him, but you representing his company and just doing a good job, is there ever a hope that he might make a phone call for you, just to somebody, anybody? Shoot a text to so-and-so,
There's always a hope, and you're spot on. I'm never going to put him in that position. If he sees something in me and he has faith in me that I could excel or accomplish something at the next level, then I'd be super grateful for that. However, I just think at this point, I mean, you said it, there's a school. I'm there every Thursday, actually. I tend to kind of run my own class on Thursdays, which even that cool. Kind of to a degree. Yeah, I will say it's nice getting to give back a little bit to his students, some of these kids that are only, 3, 6, 9 months in, and they're just trying to get better. And thankfully, they're patient with me. I've been trying to put them through the ringer a bit, get their cardio game up, because let's be honest, without getting too far off track, there's so many people out nowadays that like to play professional wrestler but don't want to actually be a professional wrestler. They don't want to put the work that goes into it. They don't want to sculpt their bodies. They don't want to eat right. They don't want to actually go to practice on a weekly basis and get better. And there's a good core group of kids there that have been putting in the time, putting in the effort, and I love to see their progression. It's been incredible, both physically and mentally. Sorry, I just wanted to get that announcement out of the way so it wasn't blank.
Bro is shoot at the airport right now, Hoot. So we're not going to keep him too much longer. We just got a couple more questions.
No.
One of the things I did want to ask you about is another kind of curveball question here. CM Punk. Any thoughts at all about the whole situation? Anything from being a guy who's in the locker room with people?
Dude, it's weird because it's one of those things, again, where without being there, nobody really truly knows what's being said on a weekly basis, who's interacting with who, in what kind of ways. I don't know. I just feel like there's so many stories that get kind of drawn out, and it's like, oh, this
Yeah.
guy's toxic, or this guy, he's got a certain attitude, and these people don't like it. And I don't know. You hear old school, like back in the day, this stuff it's regular. If you got an issue, we need to talk about it, or we can take it outside. And I think CM Punk is the perfect example of that, where he just says, you know what, if we got an issue, we need to talk about it, or we can take it outside. And some people nowadays, go ahead.
No, I just was going to say, do you think, because you share the locker room with a lot of people, and I'm sure you've shared the locker room with people that are older and from a different generation. So do you think that besides the clash of personalities, that there was maybe a clash of just mentality about pro wrestling and what pro wrestling is now and what it's supposed to be or what it was? Like, do you think like these characters, not characters, but these people that are in this locker room, they weren't going to be able to coexist because their ideas about what this is so different? It's almost completely foreign to each other.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's a cheap way out. I mean, this is a business. It's professional wrestling,
Right.
so you have to act like a professional. Like, if I have a difference of opinion with somebody during my day job and we have like a quarrel, or I still have to act within a certain manner in order for us to get past that.
Right.
And no matter what generation of wrestler you are, you still have to be professional. And if there is a quarrel or you do have a disagreement, you have to talk about it. And honestly, it's kind of unfortunate to see, but again, I'm not backstage. I don't know them. I don't work for them. But you would think in some capacity, there's got to be somebody in leadership that would step in and just kind of like, interject and mediate the situation and say like, hey, let's all have a sit down. Let's work through this and let's figure it out. But yeah, obviously that didn't happen. And CM Punk got let go. And I mean, even then, I'm just curious, like, why he had to go versus, Jungle Boy, or I don't know. There's just so many factors that come into play, and without having the inside scoop or knowing those guys and really being there, it's really tough to say one way or the other. But I just think at the end of the day, you have to be of the presence of mind of knowing, hey, we're all in this together. Like, this is our company, and we're supposed to be trying to bring in viewers, bring in buys, sell the pay-per-views, whatever the case is. So I just think that there's a level of maturity on just a grander level that those guys really should have taken a step back and said, you know what, this isn't worth a fight, or this isn't worth, all of the trouble that we're putting everybody through.
And you've been backstage at both promotions, right? AEW and WWE. I was just curious, like, if there's a distinction between the two, or do you like one more than the other? Kind of like just the general flow of how things go, not like the company itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because they're very similar in a sense that, you're in these arenas, they're they're preparing for live TV.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on. They make adjustments day of. People don't know what they're doing until, minutes before they're supposed to go out. Things change, and it's a whole rigmarole that they're going through. And honestly, for the most part, they're very similar. I think everybody, at least for the most part, from my personal experiences, it felt like everybody in WWE was just a little bit more secure in their positions with the company. You could really feel and sense that the wrestlers there, they felt that security and they wanted to help, especially me. Like, there were guys that came up to me and girls that were women that were giving me advice or talking to me through, before I was going
That's
out. In WWE, yeah, they had no reason to. They were like, all right, kid, go, good luck, whatever. And there's a couple people that come to mind specifically. Tommaso Ciampa, he was so gracious with his time and just paying attention to our match. When I did Raw and I was like rehearsing some of the stuff with Veer, the producer, we were talking about like throwing me over the top rope onto the floor. And we ran through it with a crash pad. And outside when we were in the arena, like walking through it, he was like, "Hey man, just be careful with that, huh?" So I'm like, "All right, I got it." But at the same time, I was like, "I'm gonna do whatever these guys ask of me."
Right.
Right.
Because I want to make sure that I'm coachable, I'm listening to them, and I can actually do what they're requesting.
Yeah.
But then, like even after the match, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. I will say, Veer kind of forgot a part of the match, and
Oh.
so there was a point where he was only supposed to get up on the ring apron, but he ended up getting inside the ring instead, and things kind of got a little off step a little bit. So he had to readjust how he threw me out of the ring. And it all worked out. I got out cleanly. Everything was fine. But then even coming back after the match, Ciampa was there waiting for me at the monitor. And was like, "Hey, man, that was great. Like, hope you feel okay. I'm glad you were able to take that bump the way you did rather than the other way." And I was like,
That's
"Dude,
so
this is
cool.
great."
That's so
Yeah,
awesome.
it was awesome. It was seriously, it was next level. And
that had to be such like a
what was
high,
that?
I said that had to be such a highlight for you, which is what I was gonna ask you here in a second. Just out of curiosity though, like was there any instance backstage in either company where you felt like that moment of some people call it imposter syndrome? They're like, what am I doing here? How did I wind up here? Or like, is it, I know that sometimes with music, if we open for like a band that like someone I grew up listening to, I'm like, we shouldn't be playing this show. How am I playing this show right now? You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird thing that happens, but I was just curious if you ever have those moments.
It's tough to say because I think at this point now, that's slowly starting to dissipate. There certainly are times where that does show its face, and I think it's natural. I think everybody goes through it, just like you said. Like when you guys do your shows, you feel it to a degree as well, and especially when you're on such a big stage like that. WWE more so than AEW, just because it's been around for so long. It's the global leader. They're a massive, like almost multimedia conglomerate at this point. So, when somebody says, "Hey, we're going to use you for Raw," there is like a split second in your head where it's like, "Oh shit, like I'm about to do this." Yeah. and it was awesome. And he actually, it was funny because real quick, he was like, the producer was like, "Hey, I think we're gonna use you for Raw tonight, like against Veer. Is that cool?" And in my mind, I'm like doing backflips. "Oh my god, yes, absolutely, it's gonna be great." Oh. But then, like, what audibly came out was just like, "Yeah, absolutely, that's great." Like, so it's like,
Yeah.
try to stay cool and relax. But no, honestly, I mean, being fully transparent, there's moments like I just mentioned, teaching those Thursday night classes where I'll have like imposter syndrome. I'm like, man, I've been wrestling for 6 years, and Jesus is trusting me with his students to, teach and guide them and kind of show them the way, to an extent. And yeah, I think it's like a natural thing, but I think it happens too because you care, and it's something that you want to make sure that you're on your A game and you're not, just kind of floating through and just kind of getting by. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of really where it stems from, at least for me. It's just because I care and I want to make sure I'm leaving a good impression, lasting impression, and that I'm doing things the right way.
That's cool. I also just wanted to ask real quick about Jesus and kind of like the wrestling community's building, especially in Lancaster, since that's kind of like where we are. And kind of like what your thoughts on, I guess, like working with him and kind of like what he's building here.
He is building something incredible, and he is the most humble / gracious person, at least especially in wrestling, that I've ever come across. But just even in life, he is so kind and he's so generous, and he just cares truly about the people in his life, whether that be his wrestlers, whether that be the people in like the recovery community, because that's been a big push for him. Like that's the reason he's in Lancaster is like he wanted to clean himself up. He was an addict, and there's a gentleman named Chris Dreisbach who lives in Lancaster as well. I forget how they were connected, but that's ultimately what led to Jesus coming to Lancaster, and he's just been so amazing. And being from Lancaster, there were a few promotions for a while, like Legacy Wrestling. I think there was LCW. There was like Keystone Wrestling. None of which I actually had the fortune of going to their shows. It was before I really got into it. Because for the longest time, I knew nothing about independent wrestling. I didn't even know it existed. Um, but I will say they had some incredible audiences, some very large crowds, and then they disappeared because I don't know, the one guy went to jail. It was a whole thing. We're not going to get into that. But Jesus is bringing back what people have been craving, and it's been so awesome to see. Packing in 2,500 people into the Barnstormers Stadium, local baseball team, for those that don't know, that's not an easy feat, and he did it. And even, again, going back to his good nature, he really emphasizes that we're a team. He doesn't give himself enough credit. And I will say it is a good team effort. We have a lot of people that are doing a lot of things at various points in time. However, he deserves the recognition because he puts so much time, so much effort into the product and building this out. It's just incredible to see. On the third show that he's ever had, I think there were like 550 people. And that in professional
Wow.
wrestling is unheard of.
Yeah.
Well,
That's crazy.
three questions and a statement to wrap you up here before we get you on your flight. The statement being now that, and obviously I know you're not going to chime in on this, and I totally understand, but now that a certain wrestler is not in WWE that may or may not have used your name as a catchphrase is no longer there, and a couple other neon long-haired dudes are no longer there. I'm thinking that there is an opening there for a Breaux Keller in like an NXT or, Raw or Smackdown, obviously, right? I mean, let's go. But I'm just saying, I think you would look really good on the black and gold. I'm just saying that'd be very sick.
Zero disputes for me.
Hey,
I would love nothing more.
So my last three questions for you are, one, and this is, you don't have to go into super big details, but for big matches and moments, like, you just talked about the Barnstormer Stadium when you went over at the big show in the end, in the main event. How do you mentally prepare for that? And do you have any pre-match rituals that you could tell us? And even something from taping your wrist up to wetting your hair? Do you have anything that you do that is something that you do every time?
So preparing for that stuff, I mean, I try to, and you probably hear this a lot in professional sports, or just even, I don't know, in certain situations where you never want to go too high, you never want to go too low. You want to stay consistent right along the middle path. And I think no matter what the show is, if it's in front of 30 people or if it's in the stadium in front of 3,000 people, it's important not to waver too far off of that middle ground, just because you get in your own head then at that point. You can get too enthused, too excited, too jittery then. You start getting in your own mind about like, oh, what are these spots? What are we doing? And I just think if you stay in that middle area, it's crucial just excelling and performing at your best. Because I mean that's what's most important at this point now. I mean, for a while, for me, it was just getting out there and trying to get reps, get awareness. But my biggest thing now is being consistent. I don't need to necessarily be gone every weekend doing 2, 3 shows a weekend. If I have, 3 shows during a month and they're against legitimate opponents or names, as people like to say, um, but I'm actually putting out like a good product and I'm staying consistent, that's more important than anything. I mean, even getting back to the footage, if I can show that, I'm not all willy nilly against this guy, or I'm doing really well against this one opponent that I've wrestled multiple times, and I can just show, hey, you know what? This is my body of work. This is what I do. This is what I bring to the table. I think that's more important than anything now, especially as you're trying to, raise awareness as to, who Breaux Keller is, what he's about. Can he go in the ring? Can he do a 20-minute match? Can he do a 5-minute match?
Right, which are two different
Those are all
things.
super. They are. Oh my goodness, yes. But I think even on that front too, when you're having a 20-minute match, it doesn't have to be move, which is, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are saying this nowadays, but then still go out and do it. it's really about just resonating with the fans. And as you guys probably hear all the time, telling a good story. Um, I don't know. There's just so many layers to it, I think. And for me, there's not really much of a pre-match ritual or routine. I will say I wait a long time to my gear. People
Okay.
always like give me give me a hard time about that. And it's like if I'm the last match of the night, I'm not gonna gear up on the second match. Like I'll wait till intermission or something.
You're like,
But
dude, I'm not wearing my outfit for 4 hours. All right, I'll put it on before I go out.
no, there's no need to.
Uh,
Exactly. There's no reason to gear up that early.
Well, a lot of what you were saying in this question kind of leads me to my second to last question, which is, what advice, you run classes in the school, and you help out with 3LW. What advice for aspiring independent wrestlers and young guys who are breaking in? Anything off the top of your head that you always start with, like, hey, these are like my 5 things you should do, this, 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 and this, or like, blah, blah, blah. Like anything that your go-tos.
Dude, yes. And it's too frequent that this comes up. I did kind of allude to it before, but there are a few things. One is just be clean. I feel like too often these guys are just like coming in. I've gone to training sessions at other places. Guys don't have their nails clipped. They've got like grease on their hands. I don't know. They just be clean, take a shower, put on some fresh clothes. Like if I'm doing wrestling with you, I'm gonna be in the ring with you, and we're training. I don't want to be smelling your junk from 4 feet away.
I mean,
like it's
you would think, right?
it's honestly it's
I feel like that's kind of basic, anyways.
you would think and you would feel that that's basic. However, not everybody feels that same way. And that's an easy one. That's a really easy one. I think honestly, it's also. I was saying earlier, people like to play pro wrestler. I think that's huge right now. Where yes, everybody wants to be in front of 30,000 people, square, middle of the ring, but they don't want to look the part, or they don't want to put forth the effort to look the part. And I don't think people realize, as bad as this might sound, this is like a cosmetic industry. You do have to have somewhat of a look. You have to get into the gym. I'm trusting you with my literal life. And if you don't go to the gym, or I can't trust you to like pick me up and slam me properly, then that's cause for concern within itself. Like you need to be physically fit. Like you get into a 12, 15-minute match where at minute 14, you're going to be tired. Hey, I don't know if I trust the spot that you called now, because you're clearly looking gassed. We're sweaty. There's a lot of room for error. And if you're not, physically fit or active, then who knows if you'll be able to execute. So that comes to mind too. But the biggest thing that I want to tell like aspiring wrestlers and people that are fresh in the industry is to know who you are. Because too frequently, again, people go out there, they can do the moves. Anybody at this point now can do the moves. There's so many athletes, and there's so many cool different things that we can incorporate into matches that are still nifty, but maybe aren't as difficult as they might be perceived. Canadian Destroyer. But if people know who they are, I think this is really where I excel. Sure, I can do some of the athletic stuff. However, I like to think that I connect with the audience because they can see my authenticity. And like I can give you an example. 2 weeks ago during a match, I did a thing. I was on the outside of the ring, and I took a seat in the audience beside fans. I stretched my legs out, and I was chatting with them, giving them high fives. Like, oh, that's pretty cool, huh? And they're like, yeah, it was great.
That's awesome.
Awesome. And they genuinely felt that. And I think when they see that you're having fun and you're being authentic, then that just invites them even more to have fun, and they can appreciate a lot of what you're doing even more than if you just go out there and do a move and say, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
I mean,
Also, Tim, I just have one final question for myself before you ask yours.
no, please do. Yeah.
I just had a quick question because Mania this year is kind of close to Lancaster. It's in Philly, probably the closest it's going to be for a while. I was wondering if you're going to be at that and either just attending or maybe in the backstage area.
Yeah, no, I was just talking to Triple H last night. He said Joking. Joking. Yeah. I mean, it would be ideal to be backstage, and like Gabe Sapolsky, he's somebody he took over for doing like a lot of the work with extras for WWE. And I actually did camp with him over the summer, which was really cool. A great learning experience through Combat Zone Wrestling. Also, shout out to them; they've been so gracious with me too, and trying to work with me and whatnot. But yeah, I would love to go. It's in Philly, like you said. It's an hour and change away, which is the closest it will be for a long time.
Yeah.
And Three Legacies Wrestling, I know they're booking a show, and I'm committed to that. So I'll certainly be doing that with them. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to even just get more bookings around the area. I mean, you guys know WrestleMania weekend. It's this whole extravaganza these days where all these different promotions are coming in from all over the country, heck, all over the world, and they're trying to put on their performances and their shows. So it's a great opportunity for a lot of people that are trying to get exposure. But yeah, being backstage, maybe. I'll knock on some wood, cross my fingers, we'll see. But at the very least, I'll definitely be in the area looking for opportunities to work with different independent companies.
That's cool. We'll have to check out some of those shows then too.
Gabe Sapolsky.
For sure.
Gabe Sapolsky, protege of Paul Heyman, original Ring of Honor guy. Gabe Sapolsky. Very cool. That's cool, man.
That's the one.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
And Evolved, he was heavily incorporated with Evolved Wrestling for a while. Yeah, he's been doing a lot with WWE. I mean, he's kind of the liaison between WWE and the independents now.
That's so. I mean, what a great guy to have. I mean, that's like the perfect guy. He was like the OG, like, dude running the coolest, independent shows, 12 years ago. So that, 12, 15 years ago. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Jeremy's question kind of perfectly leads into our final question here, which is just, what's next for you, man? What are your goals? Do you have anything in mind that you got your eye on that you're like, I really want to do this? Obviously, we talked about going to maybe bigger companies eventually, but is there anything in the immediate future that you're trying to do? Even if that's just with working with younger wrestlers and helping them.
Yeah, I was just going to say that too. I mean, I'm really trying to focus on these students at Three Legacies, really make sure that they're grasping everything, and credit to them. They've come a long way, and they really do seem and feel committed to bettering themselves in the ring as wrestlers, sculpting their personalities, their characters, all of that. They've been great to work with, but I'm still going to keep grinding them because there's still a long way to go. But I think that goes for everybody. We're all always learning, and even when I go, it's good for me to get reps too. But I think goals right now are really just, like I said, maintaining that body of work and being consistent. I don't know if there are any like major indie promotions that I'm trying to get in front of and work with. Obviously, if opportunities come my way, that'd be fantastic. I'm actually going up to New York here in November for a pretty sweet SAT, if you're familiar with the Spanish announce team.
Nice.
They have a promotion that they're running, and I'm looking forward to working with them. Very excited on that front. Those guys are legends in the industry, and I'm really pumped about that. But yeah, I mean, I want to work with anybody and everybody.
We don't got to do a deep dive.
What's that?
We don't got to do a deep dive. Just before we let you go, does GCW ever come on your radar? Is that an offer that you ever get or something? Has anybody ever reached out to you from there? Really?
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, I would, and that's again, it's one where I would love to work with them.
But
and
you trained,
incredible.
You trained with CZW, right? So that I figured they might know who you are at least. It's a different company, but it's that world. Yeah,
and I think there's some beef between the two.
Yeah,
I don't know all the details, but I think there was a sour split where some people were with CZW, they got out of there, they started GCW. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, who's to say? I don't know. It's just wrestling is so fickle, and as much as I would love to work with certain companies and different promotions, it's so out of my control. I mean, I can send all the DMs, I can write all the emails. But if I'm not getting a response or if I'm being left on red, then it's just kind of, it is what it is. But, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of companies I'd love to work with. Don't get me wrong. I would absolutely love to work with GCW or like Black Label Pro, for example. is another big one. Going back down south to Action Wrestling, those guys were great. Beyond up in the Northeast, there's so many out here now, and there's so many opportunities. But I mean, like Northeast Wrestling is another one, big time. There's so many, but yeah, it's just a matter of trying to stay consistent, trying to maintain my body of work, and then, if footage floats in front of the right people and they take an interest and they reach out, then I mean, it's an opportunity that I would love to have.
Well, I tell you what, dude, on this end, we are doing all the manifesting we can to make that happen for you. And I tell you another thing. I don't know if we can do it alone and the listeners of the show can do it alone, but next year, 2024, you're going to be on that fucking PW 500 list. Like, no doubt. You're getting on. We're getting you on there, dude.
Yes.
We're getting you on there.
Yes.
But, dude,
thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for coming on. This is our 100th episode. It was really special that you came on. We last had you on episode 41, so it was a long time ago. But, thank you again for being so genuine. Have a safe flight, and we'll see you back in Lancaster. Again, bro, thank you so much for coming on. Where can we find you on social media? Is it just all at Breaux Keller?
It's all. I keep it nice and easy. Everything's at Breaux Keller.
Oh, perfect.
Breaux.
BR
Keller.
BREAUX. You heard it.
BREAUX. Exactly. It's just like Gator Tigers for the LSU fans out there.
There you go.
Same thing, but with the BR.
All right, bro. Well, you have a safe flight, okay? And we appreciate you coming on. Hey, maybe we'll have you on again soon. We won't bother you again too much, but we can't wait to see how everything progresses for you in your journey as a pro wrestler, man.
Thank you, guys. Never a bother. I love chatting with you boys. It's always such a good time. I appreciate you guys having me on. Like, seriously, thank you so much for just the invite. Episode 100, come on. That's not a small deal. That's huge. So
Thank you, buddy.
Happy to be here. This has been great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks again. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And congrats to you guys for making it to 100. That's awesome.
Thank you, brother. Well, we'll see you back at home. Take care.
All right. Sounds good. See you guys.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us with that interview with Breaux Keller. That was absolutely awesome, and we love talking to him. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today. Like I stated at the beginning of the show, we're going to be talking about some WWE releases, Jon Moxley concussion, and more. Andy, I'm going to pass it over to you and let us jump into our regular show, buddy, and do things how we always do. So let's get going.
So, yes, there were a lot of releases, not just office employees, which I thought that's what the releases were originally going to be, but they got into actual superstars. So this is off the top of my head. I don't have the names written down, but some of the big ones. Let's just start with Dolph Ziggler. Though I'm not surprised based on how they used him, the guy's body of work is crazy. The Rock did a post about him being released. Cena did a post about him being
The
released.
amount of matches he had.
I mean, and he is, if he's not, I mean, he's won just about everything besides the Rumble and like maybe one of the main titles. But his brother Ryan Nemeth is in AEW.
Yep.
If Dolph,
I didn't even know that was his brother.
Yeah, if Dolph still wants to, because Dolph's name is Nick Nemeth, I believe, and once you see the picture of them two next to each other, you'll be like, oh.
Yeah, it makes sense then.
I wouldn't doubt that there'd be interest in him, though, has WWE kind of killed his wrestling dream? You go to his Instagram, I don't know if it still says it, but it used to say wrestles to pay the bills.
Yeah, it's almost like does he even want to still do it?
Yeah. Another big one was Matt Riddle was released. I think after the airport incident, especially, that was kind of like the last straw.
They just said it was like too many chances. He
burned too many bridges, yeah.
Yeah.
With this stuff. Elias, who hadn't been used in a while, though he had been pitching a lot of stuff. I don't know if you showed me a Jeremy or if I just found it on my own, but it was like Elias did a post saying that he played, Elias's brother Ezekiel, and then there's a video of Kevin Owens being like, "I was right, you're Elias."
He's like, I knew
that
it.
was kind of funny. Emma and Madcap Moss.
I feel bad for Emma though, because she was gonna she's Australian, and that's where
They were going to do hopefully something with her for Australia when they do, I think, Elimination Chambers there.
Yeah, and she even tweeted out like a few days ago. It was like, oh,
Well,
hopefully I
her
can dream.
and her fiance, which is Moss, both were released, so that's a bummer. And then I was surprised by this because I pay attention to NXT. Mustafa Ali, he's been on TV every single week, and he was about to do something on Raw when it comes to NXT, and they released him. Other than that, I can't think of any names that are, super big and recognizable. If you guys can think of any as we go on, but it's always unfortunate to see, and it came right after the merger.
I was going to say they signed that, or no, they signed that TV deal for SmackDown with USA for, was it one? I don't know. I think it's like 1.5 billion, and they signed that, and then they cut people, which is like, that's not a good image.
Well, I don't know how you guys feel because I've been so used to SmackDown being the way it is. I read maybe today that I read on Ringside News that there's talk about making SmackDown 3 hours. I don't know if you
2 3-hour shows.
So I have a source. My first source. I can't say who.
Okay.
Couple things here. I will not say who, but this is breaking news. I think we might be the first ones to break it.
The PW fan exclusive.
I know. Are we beating Meltzer right now?
I need to get like a graphic that comes in here.
I have a source who works in the company, and I will never name names, who has told us that SmackDown is leaving Fox, and SmackDown's going to USA Network, and Raw and other and NXT and other shows might be going exclusive to streaming.
To Peacock.
As long as I can watch it.
So
and
how do you
not
guys
have to
feel
pay
about maybe
for,
Raw
like,
being
like
streaming
how
only?
you have to do it for like ROH? I don't
The
care where I
viewership
watch
is
it as
gonna
long
go-
as I can just watch it. You think?
The viewership's going to go down.
The viewership is going to
Not
go down,
everyone-
but apparently,
A lot.
apparently USA offered more money for SmackDown than Fox did to keep it.
Yeah,
But
they
then
offered like 1.5 billion.
But then USA also kind of felt like they got a little cheated with the Fox deal. They're like, whoa, you get Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns and blah, 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 and we get Cody Rhodes? Like, hang on. I mean, which, no problem there, but it's a little bit of a difference,
Yeah.
So, USA making the play to really keep wrestling on their superstation.
SmackDown NXT.
Oh, really? It's
right?
only
Or
going
no?
to be SmackDown then on TV.
Right.
Oh.
Who would have thought that
That's
out of
crazy.
all the shows, SmackDown reigns supreme as the popular wrestling show?
So, we talked a little bit about CM Punk earlier. I'm reading right now. Former WWE executive envisions CM Punk's return if ratings fall off. Let's just say, though, I think we've been reading throughout the week, there's a lot of people that think it's a possibility, especially things like Survivor Series. He's in the top, we sent you the thing, he's in the top 5 betting odds for who could win the Rumble this year, which, at least.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance.
And then I'll tell you what I just read, which will get us into our next part of news. Speculation that The Rock will wrestle at WWE's Elimination Chamber event. Well, that is being speculated because last week, I know we missed it, but The Rock made a surprise return to SmackDown, opened up the show. I believe it broke the internet. You might as well say, when it comes to views. That crowd exploded. I think all of us that saw it, and it wasn't spoiled for us, it was really cool to see him back. And, is it a Cena thing, like how the strikes are going on? I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I mean, I don't think that's why he came back for that. He was on Pat McAfee's show, and then... But
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I don't think he's not dipping his toes in, because there's apparently been talks for story options from what I've read of like Ringside News and stuff, but
Yeah. I think there's a
how
better
accurate
chance
those are,
there's a
we
better
don't know.
chance of him sticking around if there's a writer's strike, which it's
It-
like I don't want there to be a writer's strike, but
It did get solved today. I don't know if you guys saw. It
It did,
They
yeah.
came to an agreement. So The Rock is John Cena. They're
Yeah.
all leaving again.
yeah. Oh god.
But
I was just saying, how awesome would it be if we went to WrestleMania this year and The Rock's there, Punk's there?
oh, dude, it'd be
You
it's
know.
it's a dream come
That'd be
true.
crazy.
I've been having to hear it. I'm going to keep my voice down a little bit. I've been having to hear it in this damn house, okay, about The Rock for the last week, all right? I don't know what The Rock's doing or who his friends are or why he's friends with Oprah, but he needs to stop. Because every time I bring up The Rock now, my wife won't let me talk about him anymore because she's like, ew, boo, The Rock. So I'm like, oh, man, what did The Rock
The Maui
do?
donation stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Maui stuff was not a good look.
Damn it, Rock. I was on the top
well-
of the ropes and I was smelling. Sorry, I just had a flashback to the Triple H.
smelling.
I love
Dude,
that
one
part.
of the
I was-
best segments.
I was on
I'll
top of the
still rewatch
ropes.
it to
I
this
was on
day.
top of the ropes and I was smelling.
He's like, no, you were on the ground like,
See, no, actually, it was Road Dogg that you laid the Smackdown on. I laid you out with the pedigree. You were always looking up at the lights, usually. All right. continue.
So, is there anything else not show related that you guys have read or want to get into before we dive a little bit into the shows?
No, not really. I mean, we've talked about some of the firings, and I mean, that's all that kind of happened in the last few weeks. There's really the shows themselves has nothing.
Nia
really
Jax returned. That was something that we missed. She's
Yeah.
been like
I mean-
popping in and out. It was super
Similarly,
random. I'm just trying to think of things that have. Becky Lynch became the NXT Women's Champion. And
She
she's
also-
been bringing it to Raw.
Cut a horrible promo in NXT where she tried to rhyme. I don't know what that was,
Yeah,
but
it wasn't very. Yeah. Well,
Did we talk
NXT's a
about?
hit or a miss. All right.
I know we took a week off, but did we talk about how, like Mussolini said that he was only available for the next 2 months, and that where
So he
Because
went
he's
back to
going-
commentary for I can't
UFC.
remember the promotion. It wasn't
like-
UFC. It's
no,
it's
well,
an
under
MMA
UFC.
promotion, but
It's like under the UFC pass.
yeah, and he was doing commentary. He said he's free for the next 2 months. Now,
Yeah.
could that be a non-compete clause? Like he didn't
Yeah,
really
like 90
say
days.
if he's able to go anywhere. I mean,
But in
God,
2
don't
months-
go to Impact or something.
no, he
That's
wouldn't.
what everyone's been saying.
He's not going to
In 2 months, a Survivor Series in Chicago.
Like Mussolini. All right. Anyway,
Um,
keep her going. I will
I
cry
think
though.
one of the announcers
I'm gonna
made
be-
a joke about someone being fear for their life.
Oh no, he
I don't know
did.
if you
He's-
saw that video.
No, the joke. No, the announcer said. You ever think he's like, wow, I don't know. These fighters might be nervous coming down. They got CM Punk standing here, and CM Punk goes, come on, no one's afraid of me. Well, actually, I don't know about that. I hear that some people might fear for their life.
Dude, that guy would joke. He joked about last time too with the WWE stuff, and I was
Yeah.
like, this guy's hilarious.
He also brought up the first time he said, I'm not going to do that this time, when he was talking about getting in a fight in the back. He's like, I'm not going to do that tonight.
But okay, so when we get into the shows this week, I'm not. It's going to be a little different because we had Bro on. I'm just going to talk about the couple big things from each show. Some might just have one big thing. So let's start with Raw. Raw, past few weeks since Jey Uso's got there, it's kind of like had a theme that revolves around what's going on with Jey. And this week it was, by the end of the night, will we know if Jey Uso is going to join the Judgment Day? Because the Judgment Day has been trying to convince him. So during the main event, it was Drew McIntyre versus Jey Uso. This was kind of a revenge match for, the time when Drew was feuding with Roman. And Drew McIntyre would end up defeating Jey Uso, but this was due to, in the middle of the match, Jey would end up taking out Damian Priest and other members of the Judgment Day. So he basically says no. Drew McIntyre defeats him, and then the Judgment Day would attack Jey before Cody Rhodes would run out to help him. So the question of the night was answered. And it looks like, I'm sure we're going to get some kind of team up at Fastlane of like Cody Rhodes and Jey versus Damian and Finn or something like that. So that's all I really have for Raw that I felt was, important.
Yeah, I didn't.
Dynamite, what?
I was going to say for Raw, I kind of feel like you covered it.
Yeah. Dynamite, there was a couple things. Opening match was Eddie Kingston versus Claudio Castagnoli. It was for each one of their
show.
Yes, it was like Grand Slam week for AEW.
Yeah.
Eddie Kingston versus Claudio Castagnoli. It was for both of their titles. Eddie Kingston is the Jeremy. I feel like you would know better than me. What
New
champion
Japan
he is.
open weight.
Is it open? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was the never weight or open weight or, but it was
Okay,
also
yeah.
for
Infinity
Claudio's
weight.
ROH World Championship.
Yeah.
And Eddie Kingston I don't think he's ever been ROH champion. He beat Claudio. Their feud is real, and surprisingly, at the end, they shook hands, kind of
They're
begrudgingly though.
professionals.
It's Ring of Honor. It's for Ring of Honor. You gotta, honor first, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It was a begrudgingly hand shook, and Claudio walked out of the ring. But good for Eddie. It was in New York. Crowd was hot for him.
Yeah, that's cool.
Makes you happy to see it.
Also,
After
Eddie just signed another like 4 years with AEW. I just heard.
Oh, good for him. I don't know if he would fit really in anywhere else.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, but
good
like
for him.
Besides,
the
like,
crazy thing is,
He would fit fine
Like
in
New
like
Japan and
GCW
stuff.
in Japan and stuff, but yeah,
Yeah.
in WWE it
Yeah.
would be weird.
but like the crazy thing is, just for Eddie, like in 2020, he was selling his car and like his wrestling gear to give up wrestling to make payments for his house, and now he's the Ring of Honor champion and New Japan Openweight champion, and signing another 4 years with AEW.
It's awesome.
Well, you could thank Cody Rhodes for that. Cody Rhodes is the one that brought him in after seeing his online promo, I believe.
Adrenaline in my soul. Did you know my dad was?
Dusty Rhodes.
Thank you.
All right. AEW Dynamite was good this week. It felt like a mini pay-per-view. It was a Grand Slam show. Chris Jericho would end up facing his friend after these 4 years of being together, Sammy Guevara. Chris Jericho would
Sammy
go
Guevara.
over, and I was not a fan of him going over until I saw how they ended it. And if you know your history of WWE and have seen WrestleMania 19, Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels, after their match that Shawn Michaels wins, they hug, and Jericho low blows Shawn Michaels. The exact same spot just about was done with Sammy and Jericho. Sammy, though, being the one to do it to Jericho, out comes Don Callis, and it looks like Sammy has turned, which I think is for the best. And finally, get out of Jericho's shadow. They pair him with Don Callis, which will be interesting. I think the fans kind of liked it. I know I did. So
Yeah.
they'll be moving forward in that direction with that. All right, so I won't go too much into it because we talked about it with Bro, but Ray Phoenix would defeat John Moxley for the International Championship. I don't believe that was the plan finish. If it was just the finish was weird. You'd have to go back and watch it. Like we said, the ref stopped. Moxley got a concussion, everyone believes, early on the match from when Ray dived off the stage because they had the ramp coming down, but it was raised up, and we'll talk about the raised ramp later once we get to the main event and Adam Cole. John Moxley did suffer, at least they're calling it a minor concussion. But what we didn't talk about during the Bro interview is that after the ref missed the count, Moxley looks up at the ref and goes, "Fuck you."
He was so pissed off at him.
Yeah. So I think everyone was surprised, though, no matter what, that Ray Phoenix won the International Championship after they just gave it to Moxley.
Yeah. Also, real quick, because Moxley actually commented on the match and everything, like his concussion. He did say it was from the dive, and basically, like he was like kind of like loopy, and then came to around the middle, and then he said he realized he was not good and needed to end the match, and that's why when they tried to end it that way, and then Rick Knox
he just wanted it to be ended, and Rick Knox didn't end it when he wanted it to be ended. He's like, "Fuck you!" Now he has to do another pile driver.
Yeah.
He's like, "God damn."
Poor guy.
Quickly, I'll say Saraya defeated her former friend Toni Storm and retained her AEW Women's Championship. And then the main event was MJF versus Samoa Joe. MJF would end up defeating Samoa Joe via referee stoppage after MJF would take a rope. I think it was maybe a rope from the turnbuckle, and he would use it to choke out Samoa Joe. Adam Cole, before this happened, would run down the ramp and jump off of it. It's a couple feet up in the air. And I don't know if he rolled his ankle, sprained his ankle, but they got a title defense coming up soon, and he was limping.
Yeah, he seems to be okay for that because they didn't say anything about changing it. So, I mean, he was like on crutches, but I think that's just a precaution.
Might have gotten what we skateboarders call a hot pocket in your ankle. Nice little ankle roll. So nothing a little ice can't fix.
Those hurt when you first get them.
Yeah, they feel way worse, and then they eventually go away, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it does make you limp around like Adam Cole was.
Which is nice when they go away.
It's fantastic when they go away, but so that wraps up Dynamite Grand Slam. I want to get into SmackDown really quick. The main stuff that was going on is that it looked like we were going to get a pairing of former rivals AJ Styles and John Cena to take on Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa at the upcoming WWE pay-per-view Fastlane. Before their contract signing at the end of the night, Jimmy and Solo would end up attacking AJ Styles backstage. And Cena would end up going out to the ring, basically try to take them both on, and would get beat down. No one came to save him. So the question is, as much as I would like to see AJ Styles and Cena team up at Fastlane, are they going to do that? Was AJ Styles taken out to maybe get Cena have Cena have a different partner, or
LA Knight.
just?
Yeah.
Well, they cut an LA Knight segment because of the opening segment.
Because he has COVID right now.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry,
but I think
there was one story, and then the second story came out. Yeah, I think
he'll be fine in a week or two.
Well, that would make sense though, with the whole John Cena holding up LA Knight's arm at the last pay-per-view and kind of doing that whole thing. It's weird to put him with the bloodline, which now it seems like Jimmy is halfway back in. We still haven't seen Roman it feels like forever now.
It feels like a long time.
All this talk about like LA Knight and Roman and all this stuff just made me think of The Rock again. And I forgot to add this in when we were talking about The Rock earlier. I was listening to Corny's show, like always. And Corny does this big glowing review of like, oh, The Rock was so great. He had the people eating out. It was the palm of his hand and blah, blah, blah. And giving him a rave review. And all of a sudden, Brian Last goes, The Rock is so lame. He is the worst. And I just was like out of nowhere. And I was cracking. And then Corny goes, what? And then Corny goes, what? And then he goes, oh, he's the worst. He's so lame. And then Corny's like, what are you talking about? And I've never heard him like disagree before. It was so funny though. Like I've never heard him
That's
like
funny.
Rock's
not
great,
agree.
man. Rock's great. Classic. That wraps up SmackDown. Rampage this week was 2 hours long. Again, it was the Grand Slam week of AEW.
It's a long show to be at.
And
like,
it
they
drew
recorded that
1,500 people.
Arthur Ashe.
Like imagine, like, you know,
Righteous-
when we went there and we saw like what they record Dark and then Rampage was like 2 hours. Imagine that being like a full 2 hour Rampage
Ugh.
in a stadium.
We left halfway through the 1 hour.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. That's a long night.
So there was like a fatal 4-way tag team match to decide who was going to be the number one contenders for Adam Cole and MJF's ROH Tag Team Championships. And the team Righteous will end up becoming number one contenders. I forget the names of the guys in it, but they are from ROH from before AEW bought them. I think they were the guys that were supposed to be part of the Wyatt family.
Yeah.
The new Wyatt family that was they were thinking about bringing over.
It has that same vibe to it.
Yeah. So they're going to be facing Adam Cole and MJF. Santana from the team of Santana Ortiz.
Santana.
He's now he's now solo. He's going by Mike Santana. And he defeated a man named Bronson, but afterwards Ortiz walks to the top of the ramp, and I've read that they're gonna end up doing a feud with Santana and Ortiz and bring that real life feud that they have going on.
Thank
so they
God
got in
it's
each
an
other's
actual feud.
face. They got in each other's face, and Ortiz was like, "You ready to talk now?" And Santana just walked away, and he was like, "All right." So it looks like they're willing to do business together, which is
it worried me when I saw their Twitter beef, and I was like, "Please be like part of a feud because I can't do this again."
I think it is. I think it is. They finally have.
Yeah. Well, they use it in like one of the
teasing it.
promo packages.
And then the main event was the Hung Bucks, Hangman Adam Page and the Young Bucks teaming up against the Mogul Embassy, and they would end up defeating them to become the new ROH Trios champions. And it seems like people online aren't kind of happy about it. Am I mistaken?
The vocal majority of the comments on Instagram were pretty rough. But again, it's not like I saw a bunch of other people like defending it either. So I don't know. But I guess the consensus was that some of the fans felt like they booked themselves to win the match.
It was weird.
No.
Like I didn't like. Why would they win the ROH Trios titles? It's weird.
It is weird.
They're like, we were AEW Trios champs. Now we got to be.
I'm being cool lately. These last few episodes, I'm being chill on the Bucks and Hangman. I'm letting them do their thing. I'm not saying nothing.
Wrestle Dream though is coming up soon, so we'll be doing predictions at a later show for some of those matches. But they keep adding them.
That show looks like it's going to be amazing.
Okay, I thought you were about to.
I know. I thought you were
looks
looks
terrible.
like terrible.
No, it didn't. I was going to be like, wait, what? Because it does look pretty good, and we'll get into what the actual matches are as we go on. Let's get into Collision so we can wrap this up. The opening match was Christian Cage versus Luchasaurus versus Darby Allin, which was basically a handicap match, but this was for the TNT Championship. Luchasaurus is the official champion, but as we know, Christian, who might be doing one of the best runs, I feel like, of his career. I love it. Father of the Year gimmick.
How's everyone's father today?
But they have now officially, Christian won the match. They have now officially made Christian Cage the TNT champion.
He was always the TNT title or champion.
He was always the
Talk to
champion.
him. They were in Michigan. RVD teamed up with Hook and defeated Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange.
Did you hear that stat about RVD that he teamed 21 years ago with Taz, and then he was teaming with his son in the same arena?
That's crazy.
My God. Well, Taz was on the commentary, so he did add a lot to commentating on Hook and RVD. Crowd was hot for him. RVD still looking good.
Crazy. His body portion, I still don't understand it, but he still moves.
It's all the yoga he does. I don't know if you've seen the old videos, him backstage and stretching before and
Yeah, his foot's
legs
like
up
here.
again. Yeah.
The key to life is yoga. Have you seen DDP? That man brought
I know.
Clearly, man. Clearly.
and he brought Jake the Snake back to life and Scott Hall for a while too. So it's like freaking crazy, bro.
Great match that happened on Collision, which for some is a dream match. Jay White would end up defeating Andrade in a banger of a match. Of course, Jay White won basically because of Juice Robinson.
Juice.
And then our main event was Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks in a Texas death match. And Bryan Danielson would end up going over. Though I'm not usually a fan of these matches. These two great together. You know,
This was a great match.
The strap match was great that they had before. Ricky's a future star. As we see, Danielson has kind of taken the role of Punk when it comes to Collision. How much longer we get Danielson like that, though? Like, what, a year, basically, is what it sounds like?
Yeah.
So enjoy it while you can. But I thought this was... It was a good week in wrestling-wise. I think AEW, especially Dynamite with the Grand Slam, it felt like a mini pay-per-view. It was good.
Yeah, they had a better week than I think the past month almost for their weekly shows. I mean,
Yeah.
But that's all I got for this week, guys.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. I don't really have anything else to add to that. I think AEW is doing like a very commendable effort considering everything that they went through in the past few weeks, and you know, they're kind of catching a lot of criticism about just the way things are handled and drama and attendance and blah blah blah. And I thought that even with all that, the talent came out and put on a great effort, and they had some really good shows this week. So it's cool.
Do you have a classic show of the week, Tim? Oh, sorry, Jeremy.
Sorry, or while Tim's dying over there, I was going to say, Tony Khan said something about, I think Wrestle Dream, he said something about like the end of, like, I don't know, that version of AEW as we know it or something like that. So I don't know if they're going to do something different
after that. I don't know what the hell
that.
that's supposed to mean, but
maybe it means they're going to do pay-per-views every month, because I feel like that's like their like HBO Max deal. That's going to happen pretty soon.
That is something we didn't talk about. There is something going on with HBO. Hopefully, it'll be like Peacock, where you get it for free.
Yeah,
and you don't have to do the Bleacher Report stuff, which can be terrible.
I hate that,
buffering wise at times. So
yeah,
and the fast forwarding on the TV, if you're not doing it on your computer,
it sucks.
Is garbage.
Yeah, it is.
It
the whole
takes
platform is
forever.
And honestly, like, if AEW isn't with Bleacher Report, what does Bleacher Report have for like their shows?
I don't know.
Exactly.
That's just where I get some of my like news of how like the shows went in the order.
Oh yeah. But
I don't actually watch anything on it. Yeah, I don't watch anything.
Neither do I. Yeah.
But take us out, Tim.
My classic show of the week is WrestleMania 26. So, you know, this event took place in 2010 from the University of Phoenix Stadium. This was headlined by the second Shawn Michaels and Undertaker match. A lot of people talk about the first, but this is the career versus the streak one. So let's go over the card. Zack Ryder, a.k.a. Matt Cardona, who's big on the indies right now, the Deathmatch King, versus Yoshitatsu, who no one likes. Then you got John Morrison John Morrison and R-Truth versus Show Miz. What a throwback. All right, here's some throwback for you guys. Triple threat match. Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton versus Ted DiBiase. It's pretty wild. The legacy match. And just to see Cody and Randy in there, Cody before he was like in his prime, it's pretty interesting. Money in the Bank ladder match, Shelton Benjamin, MVP, Matt Hardy, Kane, Kofi Kingston, Evan Bourne, Drew McIntyre, Dolph Ziggler, Christian, how's everybody's father doing, and Jack Swagger. And then Triple H versus Sheamus.
Swagger.
Triple H versus Sheamus, a.k.a. Sheamus. CM Punk, like Mussolini, versus Rey Mysterio. Man, dude, this card is like pretty stacked if you go back and like look at some of these. Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon in the worst match ever. You don't even have to watch it. I'm gonna be honest with you.
The worst match.
Edge versus Chris Jericho. A 10 Diva tag team match. John Cena versus Batista, and finally, like I said, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker 2. So great card, great pay-per-view. I just watched it the other day for fun. Just put it on in the background. I was kind of glued to it, so I thought I'd save it for the classic show of the week. So thank you all so much. Episode 100 was so fun. Breaux Keller, thank you so much for joining us. It was an honor interviewing you, and you were super transparent and friendly and answered all of our questions with no problem. We really appreciate you. I love both of these guys very much, Jeremy and Andy. I just wanted to say it on the record for episode 100. I'm honored to do this show with you here every week, even when we're stressed and we might feel like we don't have the energy to do the show. You guys show up every week, and we do it. And I just really appreciate everything that you do and all your time. I'm by no means the leader. You guys do more work than me on the getting the show ready part by far. I just wanted to let the both of you know how much I appreciate you, and keep that on audio for episode 100. Thank you for all of our listeners. We're not going anywhere anytime soon, at least to my knowledge. So here's to the next 100. Thank you all so much. Keep enjoying wrestling, and we'll see you back next week with episode 101.